For some Christian traditions, venerating saints and relics is an important part of their identity. Welsh culture, I'm from Wales, and our culture is shaped by the veneration of saints and relics. On St. David's Day, we remember our heritage. We celebrate being Welsh because of the impact of centuries of holy days for remembering saints. I think that's really good. I'm a Protestant, and maybe some Protestants have lost something good about respecting those who've gone before us, respecting their opinions, being shaped in our interpretation of the Bible and our beliefs about God by their interpretation of the Bible and their beliefs about God, instead of just shaped by our own cultural bubble that we live in today. But that's not the only thing that was happening throughout Welsh history with the veneration of saints and relics. There's other things. Believing that these people are able to hear and answer your prayers, or having rituals that is believed will lead to healing of sickness and things like that, that sound strange to me, and they don't sound like apostolic Christianity. Where did they come from? Now, if you're interested in relics and veneration in general, watch this other video I made. But in this video, I'm going to talk about a few examples of the veneration of saints and relics in Wales and where they came from. And then I'll have a challenge for you. So first of all, I want to tell you about St. Teilo's skull. So there's a well called Fynnon Deilo, which means Teilo's well. It's near a village called Deilo, Llwyddiaeth. Deilo means like Teilo's village. So in this village, there used to be a fragment of a skull that's very ancient. In all likelihood, it's very ancient. And this fragment of a skull was being used in a ritual even during the First World War. So this isn't just something from medieval history. Okay, this survived hundreds of years after the Reformation, after Wales was no longer Roman Catholic. People continued this ritual. So what is a ritual? Well, you go to a local farming family who are the guardians of this fragment of Teilo's skull, or so it said. They will draw, or they used to draw from the well for you. The skull has disappeared. In 1952, it couldn't be found. But anyway, you go back in time, you visit the farming family, they draw some water from the well for you, and then you drink it, and it's supposed to hopefully cure you of sickness. The thing is, though, where did this ritual come from? The skull, when it was studied by Gould and Fisher, they didn't think it was the skull of an old man who St. Teilo, when he died, would have been an old man. They thought instead it was the skull of a young man. They left a thorough description of it. Francis Jones thinks that the skull actually may have been the skull of a young woman. Now, who could this young man or young woman have been? Right, if it's not St. Teilo, well, the story that's told about where this skull came from is that when St. Teilo was dying, he was nursed by a beautiful young woman who was from the village. And he told her that when he was buried a year later, then a piece of his skull should be taken from his grave to the village so that he could bless the people there. So there's some sort of idea that there's a young woman involved in the story of this skull. Something else that's unusual is wells and heads in Welsh mythology. There's a connection between a person's head and a well or a water source. So one of the most famous stories is of Gwenfrewi, or St. Winifred, who was a young woman. She didn't want to marry her suitor or something, and then her head was cut off. When her head hit the ground, a well springed up. Don't worry, she's all right, because her head was put back on by St. Bueno or some, I can't remember. But there's other stories like this in Celtic, in Welsh mythology, Cornish mythology, and also English equivalents that probably come influenced by the local Celtic people. So you've got Justinian of Ramsey Island. His head was cut off. When it hit the ground, a well sprang up. You've got Noyola. St. Noyola, when her head was cut off, hit the ground, a well sprang up. You've got St. Decuman. When his head was cut off, it hit the ground and a well sprang up. And also Juthwara. And this was an Anglo-Saxon saint from southwest England, a region that's got a lot of Celtic roots. Juthwara's head was cut off, hit the ground, and a well sprang up. There's an association between these heads and these wells springing up, probably because in pre-Christian Britain, heads were likely offered to wells as a sacrifice. So if this piece of skull, this ancient piece of skull at Fynnon, Deilo, is not the skull of an old man, but either a young man or a young woman, who was that young man or young woman? How did their skull end up associated with this well? Could it be that rather than this being the relic of a saint, there's actually the remains of a human sacrifice from pre-Christian pagan ritual? There's other strange rituals in Wales that have got pagan origins. And Fynnon Degla, this is Tegla's well. There's a strange ritual where you take, if you're a man, you take a cockerel, or if you're a woman, you take a hen. You circle the well 3 times, saying the Lord's Prayer, and then you circle the church next to it 3 times, saying the Lord's Prayer. You take the bird inside the church. And by the way, this is all at night. You have to do it at night. And then you sleep underneath the communion table. If the chicken is dead when you wake up, then you've been cured. If it's alive, then you haven't been cured. It sounds like paganism, doesn't it? And it was called by Frances Jones paganism. She said, "We are in the presence of stark paganism." Cockerels would be sacrificed to Asclepius in pagan Europe. In Scotland, there was a ritual where cockerels were buried alive to try and heal someone. Think about the connection between, trapping a cockerel in a church, and if it dies, you're healed. And in Scotland, you bury a cockerel to heal yourself. These things have got a common root. The well, Fynnon Degla, has got quartz at the bottom of it, lumps of quartz, which in pre-Christian Britain, these were sacred items that you could use to offer, to offer in a ritual, a spiritual ritual. This is a Christianized ritual that's got pagan origins, just like the skull of Teilo. Where did the veneration of Teilo's skull come from? Does it come from Christianity? Or is it actually a pagan ritual that has survived the spread of Christianity and then been incorporated into Christianity? Let's talk about saints as well. One of the most popular saints in Celtic Christianity is St. Brigid of Kildare. In Wales, she's called Ffraid. Now, something unusual about Brigid is how widespread she is. She's a popular saint around Britain. Most popular saints, they're popular in the region where they lived and worked. So St. Aidan, important Celtic saint, very popular in northeast England because he started the Lindisfarne Monastery and he brought Christianity to northeast England. St. David, very popular in Wales because he's such a significant figure in Welsh Christianity. And he built monasteries in southwest Wales. St. Mungo or Kentigern, very popular in the lowlands of Scotland, where, again, he spread the Christian faith in that region historically. Patrick, very popular in Ireland, even though he's actually from Britain, but he spread the Christian faith in Ireland. So these saints are remembered and celebrated and, held up as an example of holiness in regions where actually they lived and where they had an impact. Brigid is popular around Britain, which is strange because she was based in one location in Ireland. One possible explanation for St. Brigid's widespread popularity is that St. Brigid's cult of veneration is actually the continuation of a pagan cult of worship of a goddess called Brigid. Now, we know that there was a goddess called Brigid in Irish mythology. She's talked about in Cormac's Glossary, which is a 9th century Irish text of myths. But Brigid wasn't just an Irish goddess. She was a British goddess as well. The ancient Britons also worshipped Brigid. There are Latin inscriptions to Brigantes, the ancient British name of Brigid. 7 Latin inscriptions from the 1st and 2nd centuries AD. Now, St. Brigid is supposed to have lived in the 5th and 6th centuries. So people are worshipping someone called Brigid in Britain and Ireland hundreds of years before St. Brigid ever lived. St. Brigid and Brigid, the pagan goddess, have got a lot in common. For one thing, they share the same feast day on the 1st of February, which is one of the 4 main holidays in the Gaelic seasonal calendar, which comes from before Christianity spread to Ireland. Brigid the goddess and Brigid the saint, they oversee very similar things. Poetry, wisdom, domesticated animals, healing, protection, and blacksmithing. Well, blacksmithing is a strange thing for a woman to be a patron saint of, isn't it? You would think maybe there would be a blacksmith that might be the patron saint, but how is it that this goddess and this woman have so much in common? Is it because St. Brigid is the continuation of a pagan cult? We know that there was a pagan cult devoted to the worship of Brigid. And then a few hundred years later, there's a Christian cult built up around St. Brigid. You know, it seems clear to me that a lot of the extreme forms of veneration of saints and relics in Wales and in the Celtic tradition don't come from Christianity. They come from paganism, but they've been adopted by Christianity. Now, let's talk about the challenge. Okay, now, I think there's an obvious implication for people who practice the extreme form of veneration of saints and relics, who treat saints as if they can hear and answer prayers. There's a challenge for you to reconsider that practice, to consider where it comes from and be willing to actually make a change and say, I don't want to pray to a pagan goddess like Brigid. I don't want to treat the saints in the same way that a pagan goddess is being treated. I want to make a bigger distinction between God and saints. Right, I'm going to respect the saints by telling their stories and learning from them, but prayer I'll offer to God. So that's one challenge, but I think most of my viewers are Protestants, and I want to challenge us as well. Okay, these things I've told you, they illustrate how common it is and how easy it is for Christianity to be syncretized with other ways of living and believing. Okay, Christianity and paganism syncretized to create these Christian-like versions of paganism. But that is still happening today. The world around us today is not asking us to create a version of Christianity that allows the worship of Brigid. Instead, they're asking us to create a version of Christianity that allows the worship of power, of sex, of wealth, of your own comfort, or of your own nation, or of race. This is coming at us from both sides, okay? We're being asked to create versions of Christianity that accommodate to different groups and their own vices and sins. Looking at where this extreme version of venerating saints and relics in Wales came from, I think it's a powerful warning to us of how easily the church can accommodate things that we should not be accommodating. What things are you being pressured to accommodate or to celebrate or affirm? In what ways are the things that people around you who are not Christians, the things that they give their life to, the things that they want to champion and fight for in the world, how are you tempted to accommodate those things and give yourself to those things as well? Are they rivals to your worship of God? Something to think about.